Yeah.
One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to do all the different things at once that I need to do to make this actually work nicely, and then fade that out instead of abruptly cut it off like some sort of a amateur, which I
Just
guess I
create.
literally am.
Yeah. Just create, like, do 5 or 6 different MP3s, like create 5 or 6 different MP3s and attach those to your visual and roll with it.
I think I'm going to pre-record a couple, and
Yeah.
then I'm also not going to tell you whether I'm playing a pre-recorded one or playing it live. Because
I will.
I like the back end being a mystery to everybody involved. And what do I use to make these weird visuals? Well, there's an elephant that we keep in our closet, and I let him, tap his toes on my iPad. It gets
I,
expensive.
I like the visuals. I think neither of us are drug users, but I think it gives that perception. I
I
like
like
it.
psychedelic vibes, but I don't really like drugs. Also, speaking of sausage making, you asked me to look up some patents, and I thought I would be smart. If my normal way to look up a patent would be I'm going to go to do a Google patent search. I don't know. Is that your normal way? Is that how you would do it?
100% the best resource.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to Google Patents. I don't know where Google Patents is. So I Google Google Patents search. But then I'm like, I know that it's going to be all these extra steps because I'm going to Google patent search, and then it's going to be like, then I got to go into Google Patents, and then I got to read these patents, and I'm actually going to have to like dig and do some analysis of my own and do some picking. And I said, I'm not doing that. They have tools for this now. So I went to Bard.
Oh,
And do you know what Bard gave me? It gave me the perfect format of a response when I said, give me some interesting patents around, I think I said robotics. Give me some interesting recent patents around robotics. And the response, it was all in one page. I could see 3 examples. It was like issue date, number, holder, description. Some of them had a picture with it that came from the patent, or I should say it looked like it came from the patent. And it was all completely fake.
oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh, oh. Well, there you have it. The
So
AI.
then I'm like, I don't want the AI to give me the facts, but I want the AI to format my patent results in a way that looks like this format.
Yeah.
So
Here,
put that back into regular Google search, and I'll be happy.
so here's how you do it. You open up a trial Chat GPT 4, or is it 4.5, which is with Bing. So
Yeah.
it's Chat GPT and Bing, and it gives you, because all of these models are only trained up until like 2021 or 20,
Yeah.
they
Yep.
cut off, and they don't scour the internet of today. So I think if you use the Chat GPT version with Bing, you'll get some interesting feedback.
But it will still be made up.
No, they will be real. That's the point. Well, who knows? Who knows? I would think they would be real.
Luckily, learning to Google stuff was an early skill for me that these people would complain that I sat next to, like we were doing market research basically, and some senior director would come down and be like, I need you to find the answer to this. I don't know why this one always sticks in my head, but it was like, how many flat panel TVs are made in Brazil in a year? And you know maybe that's a bad example for just Googling the answer to that. But then, I would constantly, after those conversations, then my peers would come and be like, I don't know why you didn't just Google it. I'm like, I don't know why either. But if he wants you to Google it and you're good at Googling it, then just Google it and don't worry about it. Like, why are you complaining that you're good at your job?
Yeah.
This makes no sense to me.
Speaking of jobs in Google, and I am not saying this in a positive light, I once worked for a company that I will not name, where they had a national sales meeting, and the keynote speaker that they brought in for the national sales meeting was a guy who talked about how to Google.
I've seen that guy. Unless
Okay,
there's more than one. I've totally seen this guy.
probably just him. Probably just him. He go in his shtick. He talks about how he was able to come up with Michelle Obama's driver's license just through Google, and um, a bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like I sat through that thinking, how is this still a company? How is this a company?
What year
Like
do you think that spiel started?
how to Google?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It had to be the mid 90s, because that's when I was learning those things in elementary school.
Well, this was an hour keynote for people
Professionals.
supposed to be. Yeah, but I don't care about that part. It's the fact that there were very, very senior leaders in this company. Let's say all the way to the top. Now, this was the American division of a foreign company, but still quite accomplished by title, quite accomplished people. And that's your strategy for how to, drum up the forces and send them out equipped to tackle the market and sell lots of things, is to Google better.
Uh, well, I mean, we're the. I actually can't think of a better example of somebody who doesn't know how to Google very well than the top brass in a company.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. I don't know. You've made the point on here several times that I'm an optimist, and I
I was
am.
about to bring this up again. Your your expectations are so unreasonably high for other people's ability to use Google.
Well, okay, but it's not that. I go into it knowing everybody in the room's probably bad at Google. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I also don't think that I've never had a job that required me to learn from the guy who got Michelle Obama's driver's license through using Google, to learn from him how to use Google. I've never had a job where that was important.
I like to work. The only thing so I don't like takes. I don't have a take here. I have an opinion. I realize that this is a show where we talk about a lot of takes, but I don't like them. If I can avoid it, I'm going to stay away from a take. And
But I don't like them.
my take that's better than a take is just an observation about somebody else, and just say, oh, here's a fact. So I will tell you the fact that when I got out of the room of the Google person as the keynote speaker, the people to my left, the people to my right, the people at the reception, they loved the Google speaker guy.
Well, yeah.
They were like, "Oh yeah, it was really helpful to, I didn't think I needed to know this stuff. It never occurred to me that I could be a better Googler if I just put a minus next to a word." And
Yeah,
I
or a
like
plus.
I like held it in. I bottled it up and managed not to say, "Oh yeah, a lot of that was review for me based on the classes I took in 3rd and 4th grade
Plebe.
when they first introduced me to computers." So and then I think that trying to walk away from that conversation less dumbfounded and more just sort of, I'm like mildly, I'm intrigued that we had such different experiences between me and these other people that loved the how do you Google search.
Well, two things. Okay. First, anti-take is still a take.
Oh
Second,
man,
so pack that bag, because you're
I'm
wearing it.
hosed.
You're taking it. Second thing is, I don't know, man. Like I'm just trying to find a scenario where, you know, fluency or being good at Google. What's your job? What is your job where Google guy helps you be a better person, a better, more productive person? Anyway,
I don't feel like I can. I think that I could spend a lot of time explaining and rationalizing why that's a great life skill, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let the company that continues to give keynotes about how to be a good Googler, I'm going to let them speak for themselves. And in the meantime, I'm going to go to patents.google.com and look for interesting patents while you fill the time with the ones that you found, given that
No,
I was
so
unable to find any on Bard.
okay, so here are your constraints, and you can do this just sort of right now.
Yeah.
The constraints are, don't look for something specific. We tend to, if we did that, I would talk about AI patents, you would talk
I
about
would talk about
robotics
robots.
patents,
Yeah.
and we'd basically talk about the same stuff we always talk about.
Wait, so how the heck how do I search open-endedly for a patent that I find
Just
interesting?
just put date ranges in and search within it. So I put in October 1st to October 31st of this year, and it brought up a bunch of stuff. And it looks like a bunch of foreign patents, which I'm great with that. I'm absolutely great with that. I'll start.
What do I put in the search box to get nothing? How did you do this? Why am I bad at Googling patents?
So I think this is the universe's way of course correcting you, because you just spent 3 minutes talking about your proficiencies in Google. And
I just use regular Google. Well, this patent thing. I mean, I have used Google
so
Patent, but it's like I'm looking for a specific thing.
just go to Google Patent,
Yeah,
and
I'm
you'll
there.
see the filter thing in the search
Yeah.
bar. Just
Uh-huh.
click on filters, put in a date range, and it brings up all the patents issued during that time.
Can I use common language like last year?
No, you have to enter actual date ranges, and it's year, month, day.
Ridiculous. Okay, what you and you said you did October.
I did October 1st to October 31st. So you should do November
Fine. And that's of this year.
of this year.
What
Yeah.
did you find?
Well, okay, so I'm going to start. I just picked one that looks interesting. And
Okay.
I'm not gonna say why it looks interesting, but it just looks interesting. Anti-wrinkle tightening face cream and preparation method thereof.
Nice. I don't think you have to say why it is interesting. That's just interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Chinese patent. Um, I'll just read the abstract. How about that? Or is that's probably pretty boring.
Maybe summarize it.
The active ingredient, this is really the take home, because that's probably why the invention discloses an anti-wrinkle tightening cream and a preparation method thereof. Got to get the legal speak in there. Wherein the cream comprises 0.8 to 3% of unsaturated acid acylated hexapeptide. Okay, bunch of big words coming up that we'll avoid. The active ingredient, unsaturated acid, acylated hexapeptide, is obtained by acylating hexapeptide with unsaturated acid and has better skin permeability. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. Better anti-wrinkle effect and lower skin irritation than acetyl hexapeptide. So this is a chemistry patent, basically, I would say,
To get stuff delivered into your skin to
to
make
get
it
it in there.
tight.
Yeah, I like that. I like the patent.
How often do you do this without doing it for the sake of the Happy Job records?
I went through a phase where I did it a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to see. Okay, so I have like 3 different ideas that I've had for at least 5 years that I keep checking, or I haven't recently, but that I would periodically check to see if any. This is a thing in my life where I think. Here's an example. I, as a late teenager, early 20s, had a novel in my head that I wanted to write called The Farm, which was about people that were either voluntarily or coerced into going to a clandestine camp in the U.S. to learn how to be agitators of some sort. So, like, you know, people would know the term false flag or something like that.
Yeah.
That is what I was very, very young before I ever saw anything like this ever, 10 or 15 years. Well, that thought was in my head as I went through life. And on occasion that idea would come back into my head. But then I learned in my probably early 30s or late 20s that there is actually an FBI thing called The Farm. And that messed with me for a little bit. So I have this frequently where I'm like, I've got this idea. And I think the bigger point there for me is that everybody has these ideas. Like there are
Yeah.
you have to capture them at the time. That's what this whole patent thing exists for. You have to capture them at the time because a lot of smart people are thinking about similar things.
I don't know how to feel about patents. I like execution a lot, and I sometimes feel like it, there have been some cases where I've dug into a patent, and the patent is for, like, I don't know how to put this other than the patent is for the sake of basically
Yeah.
rent seeking. It's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna patent podcasts and make it so that whoever makes a podcast has to pay me. And a lot of these don't make it through because they're bogus and they go against the spirit and the law of patent law. But then some of them do make it through, particularly if it's in an obscure or weird corner of the earth. And you know, then the next layer of complexity to all this is, if it was a good idea and was patented as a good idea, but then it was also a really good idea. Humanity is great at having parallel ideas. So the odds that somebody can come up with a slightly different variation that would skirt the patent and get to whatever the same end result is, super high.
So here's the question. Do you think there are groups of varying size, whatever size, in large corporations, probably cross functional teams that are consistently aware of what patents are issued as their job function to see anything and everything that's relates to their work and how to go about taking it apart or buying it or adding it to the portfolio?
I
Do
mean,
you
I don't know if there are, but I assumed that was a function. Yeah.
okay?
I just I, it bothers me that you can be a pro at patents. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
seems like that's against the spirit of a patent in the first place. It's also, it's related but not related, is being a professional at taxes or at tax preparation seems kind of, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
very obvious overhead, right? Like it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
And having a tax preparation as a field seems ridiculous. The Tyler Cowen, the Economist, has a version of this, which is it's very like tongue in cheek ish, but also kind of hostile and also maybe kind of funny. But he frequently returns to, first thing we do, let's fire all the lawyers. And I think it is a libertarian desire to have things work smoothly with the minimum amount of overhead required and to cut through red tape. And the frustration of red tape in reality leads to, snarky comments about firing all the lawyers.
Can I say and I know you have a very close relationship with an attorney.
I have a
So
bunch of attorneys I'm friends with.
yeah.
They should all be fired.
So
That's my take.
here is my take on this. Obviously not general, it's hard to generalize, but I think as a field, I don't think intellect is the selected for criteria, at least in Kentucky. It's not, no, hear me out. I think it's the same across. It's not intellect. It's, do you dumpster dive your whole life to develop? It's how you play the game. You know this judge, you've wined and dined this judge, so you know what cases do and don't work. Like it's just a shell game of smarmy swamp that I cannot stand.
Well, you've played right into my hands for my next contrarian or thought provoking point, which is, there's a lot of different types of law. There's a lot of different types of lawyers. Saying let's fire all the lawyers is like saying let's fire all the teachers,
Yeah.
because there are some bad elementary school teachers who are just sort of like Miss Krabappel from The Simpsons. Okay, sure, there are teachers that are like that. That doesn't mean that, like, you can't possibly universally paint with that brush. I'm trying to think of a field where you can just be like, every person in this field is trash, and they should all be, the world will be better off without anybody who's in this profession or field. And I don't feel comfortable naming any field or profession where I would take that broad a brush.
I
Is
don't
there
know.
is
I think hedge fund is up there.
a financial innovation matters.
I mean, we have to have people who push money around to get money back. I think that's why this has been the greatest experiment in the history of the planet. But I guess it's just me. I would not. I would rather die a slow, painful death than go to work doing stocks and money and all that stuff every day. I
I
just,
do think that it's an indication that you don't have the personality type for it, that you referred to it as doing stocks and money.
yeah, whatever it is.
You know, those stocks things and that money stuff.
Yeah. You need to talk, you need to present us a patent.
Uh, Product dispensing system, U.S. patent 202.303.83734A1. Inventor Russell H. Beavis and Daniel F. Pawlowski, or possibly Pawlowski. The assignee is Deca Products Limited Partnership, DEKA. Um,
The guy's last name really is Beavis. It's probably Bevis.
Beavis. Beavis. This is a patent for a device, a physical device, which is clearly aimed at people who have some idea of what this device is. There are loads of pictures, which are interesting in the technical drawing sense of things. There are 110 images. They're all oriented incorrectly in Google Patents, so I have to crane my neck to see them one at a time. Every one of the 110 images is sideways, which is makes it hard to go through this. There's a lot of nozzles with press-on hose fittings.
Mm.
I see some Phillips head screws. I see a housing and then some piping. And honestly, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. I feel like I've heard of Deca Products Limited. I feel like if I Googled Deca Products, I'd get more. I feel like having live ignorance is really exposing me here. And I like to only talk about stuff that I know everything about. So congratulations to you for taking this to a new place for me where I actually just am like, wow, I'm currently publicly overwhelmed. And oh, by the way, it's being recorded and posted to YouTube. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Well, give
We
me another one. Find me another one, and I'll look for one that I'm slightly more.
well, we said we wanted to publicly learn, so I think you're seeing it
That's
the
true.
wrong way.
I guess publicly failing is part of publicly learning.
Well, we're learning in real time. So I've been trying for a bit to find out the mechanism for cleaning, but this is here we go. Um, Supporting base clamp, which faces one-sided lens by the brackets. Okay, so this is patent number. I like the Chinese patents. I don't know why. CN 2199579556U. Chinese patent. That's the number. It's an infrared thermal imaging lens with automatic cleaning function. And that's the part that I'm interested in, automatic cleaning function. So the background is what's interesting too. Um, it they go through this detailed, this is basically this thermal imaging function camera is what I'm assuming. It's a surveillance tool. And it goes through the background of how these are mounted outside and they're mounted at height, and it's not feasible to physically send someone out when these things get dirty to clean them. And if they're not clean, you can't see what, the images are, obviously. So to get the function of the tool, you have to have some method for cleaning it. And this thing has a built-in cleaning system. And essentially what it is a side frame that has, and I was trying to read that, but it's a side frame which has a water supply attached to it that can be automated to come on. It's controlled by there's air cylinder controls to move that in place to clean the lens. But it's basically an outdoor camera that has on board the ability to clean it, the self-cleaning camera.
Self-cleaning infrared camera.
Yeah. I said
Where, what's the,
a bunch of
did it
words.
describe the mechanism of cleaning? It's a sprayer.
It's an actuated water nozzle that's automated.
How much do you know, or do you have any frame of reference for automated self-cleaning cameras or viewport type things?
Never, I didn't know that they existed. There are a
On
lot of, it seems like there are a lot of needles to thread there.
on a Formula One race car, there are cameras all over the place because the audience is consuming Formula One races by way of cameras, right? Like this is, yeah, you could be at a Formula One race, but they're all over the world. So everybody who's a fan is watching on TV. You can't separate TV from Formula One race. And one of the cameras that's sort of like right above the driver's head has on all the cars, the camera has an automated cleaning system, which is basically and I'm going to butcher this, but it's a clear Lexan or plastic cylinder, and that cylinder spins in slowly in front of the camera. And so if it's raining or if there's schmutz on the front of the thing from the road, it basically goes through a wiper and it rotates, and a clean piece of glass comes back around, or clean piece of plastic comes back around, and you can see, as stuff accumulates on this the cleaning part of the camera assembly, you can actually see on the video feed if it's going through its cycle, you can see the schmutz as it moves, and a clean piece of lens comes in. So that's my frame of reference for uh, self-cleaning lenses. Although I don't think that's actually the lens. I think that's a lens assembly or a lens housing that has the cleaning piece on it.
Yeah. Well, again, to the prior conversation, it feels like there are a number of different variations of this same concept. And that's a lot of patent law, I would assume, is how to protect that specific variation.
Yeah, my next one
All right.
it makes sense to me in English. It's a system and apparatus for sensing and providing alerts for deadbolt lock status.
Okay.
This is, I mean, I am not a patent attorney. As far as I can tell, this is exactly what it sounds like. It is a doohickey that you put on a deadbolt lock to sense whether the lock is locked, and do whatever you want with the sensing system. So the components of this system are the door, the deadbolt assembly, the deadbolt actuation, which for the sake of this, it actually doesn't matter whether it's like a hand turn knob or a keyed knob or or like a punch button knob. And then there's a lock status sensing assembly, which then is connected wirelessly to an alarm system of some kind. And I'm like, you stuck a sensor on a deadbolt to to see if it's closed or not, and
Okay.
that got a patent in 2023.
Where is that? Where, I mean, if you're a company and you have, I'm trying to think of where this is necessary. Like, where is this a value? It's not a home commercial use, is it?
No, it's like a normal deadbolt for your front door.
So where is this a value?
Did I remember to lock the door? Oh, thank God I have this patented technology from Terry Co. Oh, sorry, from Mark Tobias and Tobias Bluesmanis. It's a lot of Tobias in one patent.
Yeah, but see, I see that and I see, okay, here's the perfectly functioning mechanical device. You just opened up a surface area threat for somebody to, they don't, now they can, if you can jam the sensor, or, is that a way to unlock the door without having to bust the door
Oh,
down?
whoa, hold on now. The patent is not for a locking or unlocking mechanism. It is for the sensor system to tell you whether the door is locked or unlocked. It'll only tell you whether it's locked or unlocked. It's one direction.
Okay, but here's the thing. To get use out of said sensor, there's got to be a Wi-Fi or some sort of connectivity because somebody's got an app on the other end,
Maybe,
presumably.
maybe. Why not just have a giant display in your house? Why not just have a screen above your door
And HMI.
that is connected with a physical wire that's going to tell you big giant green, the door is locked, and then it turns red and you've got like a flashing light and a siren goes off. It's all hardwired and it's like, the door's not locked, the door's not locked. You could even put a local timer on that, like don't connect it to the internet. Just be like, every night at 10 p.m. if your door's not locked, sirens blazing. And thank God for Mark Tobias and Tobias Bluesmanis, because without these guys, you'd never be able to have this system of telling you that the door is unlocked.
Yeah. I'm betting lots of valuable body parts that is connected to an app. And in doing so, you give some aspiring vandal or criminal a means for jamming or hacking into your Wi-Fi.
I mean, at this point, I feel like I should have been a patent attorney, because I keep homing in on who gives a crap what happens after the patented piece, because we're here to talk about the patented piece,
Yeah.
which is explicitly not mentioning anything about what happens after you have this sensor.
But I love the irony of that patent. Here is
Well, yeah, you're not making me love patents by finding this stuff. But Mark Tobias and Tobias Bluesmanis.
too many Tobiases. I think, yeah, too many Tobiases.
Okay, here's a use case that I have in my mind, right? Also, Mark Tobias is big in systems and apparatuses for deadbolts. He's got a lot of these patents. He's been busy.
So he probably
deadbolt.
Works for Schlage or
no way, because they're individual held patents. If he worked for those guys, then he wouldn't be able to keep his own IP for this stuff. He's got pet door alert system in 2021, a lock with multi-factor authentication. I know what those words mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a parallel thing I'm never ever going to patent. Have I already told you about the gecko tank?
Yeah, the one that you stood upright and hauled on your bicycle.
Right. Okay, so the gecko tank has to be held at a controlled temperature and humidity for the gecko to thrive. Goldie. The gecko's name is Goldie.
Which is yellow.
I mean, she's orange. Yeah. She's like goldfish colored.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at this deadbolt, I'm now putting my apparatus that I have in mind, my inventor hat. My inventor hat is, I have an apparatus for remotely monitoring the temperature and humidity of a terrestrial pet containment vessel. And I'm like, all I want is to just plug a crummy little sensor into a Raspberry Pi and be able to tell when I'm on vacation that I need to call the neighbor and be like, hey, can you go spritz Goldie's tank?
Spritz. Oh my God, that word makes me sweat.
I just need to spritzy some spritzes in there.
Mist. Let's say mist.
Right. And then this is all a precursor to Auto Mr. 9000, which I will eventually build, which will be, I now no longer have to call the neighbor and say, hey, can you please come mist the gecko? I can instead just only have the neighbor there as a fail-safe. Yeah. So I'll get like camera on the gecko. I got automatic mister. If the temperature goes, if the humidity goes too low and it needs to be misted, I'll either have an automatic loop that sets up the mister to do it on itself, or I'll have a remote trigger for the mister. And the same app that I've got, and I use the term app very loosely. You're not seeing this on the app store anytime soon. I hit my button on my phone and it makes a mist spray. See the temperature and humidity readings change, blah, 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 blah. And then if there's a catastrophe while I'm gone, I call and say, hey, my Auto Mr. 9000 is failing because I'm a bad inventor. Can you please go and unscrew up Goldie's environmental controls? And that's great, and I'll still pay the neighbor the money to feed the gecko, but it's just one less thing they have to worry about, and they no longer have to be an expert in gecko humidity and temperature. There's no chance on any planet that I would make any effort to patent any piece of what I just described. Ever.
Yeah, you could buy a simple control system to do all that.
Right. Well, so that's what
but you could.
That's what Terry says you could do. But what inventor, and I'm not, now I lost this guy's name. Now is Tobias. Mark Tobias and Tobias Bluesmanis, are these guys inventors? I say yes. They're individual patent holders. They've got like 20 patents in the last year, more or less in the same deadbolt space. Okay, so these guys are inventors. I'm unfairly creating a profile of them in my mind here. The inventor who just explained Goldie's story to you as opposed to the Terry, the inventor would be like, oh, that's all patentable because it's specific. Like the whole chain of crap that I just described, minus the call the neighbor when it doesn't work. That whole chain, that's the thing that gets the patent. It's not
We,
like,
you know what would make that patentable 100 different times?
no,
100, like
AI.
all, well, yeah, no, like just calling it a gecko, blah, blah, blah controller.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then giraffe, blah, blah, blah controller.
Do giraffes need a
Snake.
temperature and humidity controlled environment?
I think so. Yeah,
In
I think so.
Florida, where my in-laws live, they've got giraffes at the zoo, and whenever the temperature drops below 50 or 60, which is not often, but they're in Gulf Coast Florida, so it does still happen. The giraffes go inside, and while you're driving down the highway, you can see the giraffes if it's nice out, and they seem to tolerate heat okay, but the cold is tough on the giraffes.
So, do you know how giraffe males fight?
Yeah, they swing their necks into each other.
They beat the living hell out of each
Yeah,
other with their
with
necks.
their necks. It's amazing.
I wonder if they
I'm
get headaches.
You know how James Cameron is something of an armchair underwater explorer?
Yes.
And then he pivoted with lots of money from being an armchair underwater explorer to just being an underwater explorer. I mean, I'm something of an armchair naturalist. I enjoy animals. That's how I ended up with a gecko. I mean, partly. And like I had other exotic pets before that. Like if you're going to get a tank-based exotic pet, tarantulas, not that interesting. The ones that live in trees, that's called arboreal. They're hard to keep because they're a little bit aggressive, but they're also shy. A lot of them are nocturnal. There's not a lot of information about how to actually keep them, so there's no good husbandry data on how to keep them healthy. You can't find a vet for tarantulas. Uh, but if you want, weirdly, the Madagascar hissing cockroach is a great pet. They're like big like this, they're huge. No, that's too big. They're big like that, like bigger than a silver dollar. They're pretty. They're surprisingly for being a cockroach, they kind of clean up after themselves. They don't stink. They do hiss sometimes, but not a lot. You can handle them, and they don't care because they're a hissing cockroach. Tarantulas, they've got urticating hairs. You know what that means?
This is why we do this, is because I'm learning about urticating. I've
The
never heard the
tarantula
word.
can rub its feet together and it flicks hairs that are irritating into. Actually, I've read this stuff about it and I haven't really seen one do it because I never handled my tarantula. I don't see how flicking a pointy, irritating hair into a predator or a threat is going to make them stop doing what they were doing. They're going to be irritated, but I don't feel like irritation is enough to make me not eat you. Like if I'm a bird, I'm like, ooh, yum, a tarantula. Let me come eat this tarantula. And I get, oh no, it flicked a hair on me. My skin is now so irritated, but I'm also still hungry. Bye, tarantula. I feel like that's how it would work.
So, if you had a superpower selection to make between the ability to fly or urticating hairs, which would it be?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, if I had urticating, I'll talk out the reasoning out loud. Urticating hairs, nobody needs to know as long as I'm controlling it. I fly one time, the world sees me fly. I'm like on the tabloids, and then there's like subreddits about whether I flew or not. You can't hide that very well. So that's the only upside to urticating hairs versus flying. Every single other advantage goes to flying. So I'd probably go with flying.
Oh, I'd definitely go with flying.
Well,
But
when you posed it as a question, it seemed like the answer was obvious, which made me think maybe it was a trick question where the answer was too obvious.
if I had the skill to be on the fly thinking up trick questions about urticating hairs versus learning to fly,
That's a mouthful.
well, I'd be good. That would be a skill.
People always ask about the tarantula fangs and biting. Depending on the breed you have, they don't particularly bite very much, but they'll urticate you with their hairs. I don't even know if it's called urticating. I've never heard the word urticating before or since.
I'm going to use that word just in casual conversation.
Yeah,
Like,
please do. It'll definitely
I'm,
endear you to all kinds of people.
I, for sure, I'll sound smart or important or obnoxious or whatever, but I'm going to use that word.
Have
I've
you
never
ever
heard
heard of?
that word before.
Had you heard of a Madagascar hissing cockroach before?
I hadn't.
And now you know. Great pets.
Can can I tell you? In our last couple of minutes here,
Yeah.
I have, if we're following the breadcrumbs in reverse to how we ended up talking about urticating hairs and animals fighting style, I have, this is a segment about patents. I have no idea how we got here. Your gecko control system, I think, but even then, I don't know.
Well, here's how it works. I'll make this a very straight line for you.
I don't think you will.
Yeah, the world of patents is weird and far ranging. And all you got to do is go dig into some patents, and you're going to see just how weird and far ranging the world of patents is.
Yeah.
That's all
I
it
had
takes.
I had one that I wanted to get into. Maybe we'll ruminate on this segment and whether we found it enjoyable. And if we did, next go round of patent discussions, I'll talk about this one. It's a gas one.
I don't feel like I understood the rules. We're gonna have to do this several more times.
There are
We're coming back to this. We have the entire universe of patents. We did 2 months of
yeah,
patents. That's it. And
yeah.
look at how far down a rabbit hole it took us.
And we did like 2 patents from those 2 months. So I got to figure out how every one of mine were Chinese or Japanese, and I got to figure out how that happened. I'm not. I enjoyed it.
I filtered on US as the
Yeah,
issuer.
I did too, but then it didn't give me any results. So I cleared US and then it gave me nothing but Chinese and Japanese.
Well, I think the clear takeaway is that both of us could use a
Googling
conference
help.
session from a Google expert.
Well done. Full circle.
See you next time.
Have a good afternoon, Russ.